There's some good news out today on the issue of marijuana policy. Think Progress reports, quote, the U.S. government should reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug so that scientists can conduct more research into its potential health effects, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends in a new policy statement. It's the first time that the leading doctors group has updated its official stance on medical marijuana in more than a decade. So, this is great news that a respected organization is taking a stand on this issue, because this means, I think, that it's going to be a domino effect. You're going to see more and more respected doctors, groups, and associations say, yeah, it's a little silly that marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug, as if there's absolutely no medicinal effects of it, when we know anecdotally, and we know from studies done elsewhere, that in fact there are a plethora of medicinal uses for marijuana. So we're moving closer towards changing this incredibly made up and BS perception of the drug marijuana as worse than, different opiate pills and Adderall, which is essentially amphetamine pills. Like, there are a lot of things that everybody understands they have medicinal use, but they're much harder narcotics, harder drugs than marijuana. So we're getting closer and closer to lifting the veil of absurdity here and finally addressing this policy in a rational way and changing it to coincide with the reality. Now, I didn't know this, but did you know that the first ban on any drug in America was in 1914? Isn't that interesting? So that means this experiment of total prohibition on all these substances is an experiment that's just a little bit over 100 years old. And it's been a massive failure, never mind when we put it into hyperdrive with the drug war and onward. That's when the problem got worse and worse, is that we spent over $1 trillion to try to eliminate drug use. I'm not kidding. That was the stated policy, the stated goal of the drug war. And what happened as a result of it? In an attempt to eliminate drug use, now first-time drug use and continued drug use is actually higher. So we took $1 trillion, flushed it down the fucking toilet trying to prevent drug use, and now it's higher than it was before. This is just like the war on terror. The goal is to eliminate terror, and then what happened? Because of the war on terror, we net created more terrorists. So going by their own criteria, their own standard, this has been a total, absolute failure. And the idea is, here's my point, even if you are really conservative on this issue, the issue of substances and drugs and whether or not people should be able to use them and what the punishment should be and everything, even if you're very conservative on these issues, you should still at least be in favor of decriminalizing, but you really should be in favor of legalizing. Now, why do I say that? This is very important, because the reason drugs are this gigantic problem, and there's all this violence and crime associated with it, 60,000 people dead on the border in a literal drug war. The reason why that happens is because you made drugs illegal. When you make something illegal, you push it underground to the black market. When it's on the black market, only criminals deal with it. So instead, if an issue arises, instead of going to court wearing suits and ties, people settle it on the streets with AK-47s. And look no further than the results of prohibition for the facts on this. Because you know what made the mafia incredibly powerful and strong? It was prohibition. Because they stepped in and filled this void in the marketplace, this want for alcohol. They said, okay, we'll supply it. So they made it themselves, they sold it, they got incredibly wealthy, incredibly powerful, and then they realized, the government realized, oh, wow, all the effects that we wanted to eliminate, the social ills we wanted to eliminate by banning alcohol, we actually made those social ills worse. So it's the same thing with marijuana. The way prohibition functions is no different with any of the substances. The problem gets worse and worse. Another example of this is prostitution. If you make prostitution illegal, you shove it underground to the black market, that's when you have pimps and there's abuse and there's STD transmission and there's violence and all these problems. But if you have it legal, taxed, and regulated, what do you have? You have a system just like right outside of Las Vegas, where you've never had an STD transmitted. They get tested every week or every month. There's regulations, there's benefits and higher pay because the government is making sure that there's not exploitation going on. So the answer is never to totally ban something. The answer is to legalize, tax, and regulate. We learned that with alcohol. Now we're inching closer towards understanding that with marijuana, but we can't get there soon enough. Let's get there quicker.